do they say we are a democracy? And they were very adamant about that. And what I've done is I went ahead and planned the whole 9 weeks out. We're going to learn about John Locke and the principles of property also. And I showed it to the other teachers because I teach one class of social studies. I have 3 other team members that also teach. And they like us to do the same thing when it comes to that. So I've showed them what I had planned, what I laid out, and they all agreed to it wholeheartedly. So every 6th grader in that district will get the same curriculum. Yes.
So your administration allowed this? I mean, there's been a systematic dismantling of education, you know,
right.
Well,
the teacher I'm replacing is actually in an administrative position now at our school, and she was fine with it. It's on the timeline that I turned in, and it was approved. And basically, they're very anti-Obama. They're not happy at all with what's going on. And I'm not worried. I had people last year say, aren't you aren't you a little bit worried about that? And I thought, I'm teaching the truth. And I'm teaching what the founder said. How can you argue?
What school?
I've been told that.
What school?
It's Nixon Smiley CISD. It's a very small rural district. We probably have 2,000 people.
Would you consider some recommendations on how we might introduce it to our instructors?
Sure.
I'm in LISD,
I would love to.
And I'd love to take this to my son's brand new elementary school. He's going to be to 6th grade. I would love to go and talk to
Sure,
you.
I would
Share
love
your
to.
experience. Because once there's precedent, it gets maybe a little easier.
Yes.
Well, also, Deanna, imagine if you had a majority of trustees on a school board that have the same kind of common sense that you do, and were determined to put this kind of decent education in the school.
Right.
You could make tremendous headway.
Right.
I have a comment. I mean, out of Lake Travis, I'm at BK, and my son's in a private school right now. And at Lake Travis, he's got a good friend, and this year they were discussing what they were learning in history. My son was learning about the War of 1812. His friend was learning to write a paper on global warming. But in history.
Okay, but let me tell you that when I looked at my curriculum, okay, it's social studies 6th grade, it's state adopted curriculum. It is mostly geography and cultures. There's very little history. So I'm injecting history into it, taking the liberties as a public educator. I mean, I went to college, I'm certified to do this. As long as I teach what they tell me to do, but I can inject in what I know they need. And that's what I did last year, but I could prove everything if they came and asked me, how does it fit into the guidelines? Well, it fits in here, 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 here. I mean, if they can fit their stuff in, I can fit my stuff in and make it work.
Here.
Also this year, I was telling Ron on the way up here, I have several autobiographies that we're going to be reading in social studies. One is about a girl that is about their age, and it's a true story of her life in communist China. She remembers when the communists took over, how her daily life changed, quality of life, dreams for her future. We're going to read that. We're going to discuss it. I have one from a boy in Vietnam who remembers when the communists came in and took over. I'm getting one in, I don't have it yet, from somebody in Afghanistan. We're going to cover the world. But they're going to know communism is not just this abstract thought. They're going to know what would it feel like on a day-to-day basis. What would it be like? And they're going to remember that more than if I just, let's just cover the landforms of China and the culture. Let's really get into it. Let's not gloss over these things. And that's a really good way to do it with that age group, is to get them to make connections with somebody that's their age. I've got one from a boy who was growing up in Czechoslovakia when the Russians took over. And what is communism? What does it look like? And I told Ron, I want to make this continuum. Okay, here's what the founders put in place. And on this end, we have communism over here, or totalitarian. Where do we fall in the continuum? Because we're going to look at, where are we at today, and where do we fall, and why, and what can we do about it? So, you know, and I will continue on this. I feel very strongly about it, and I don't feel that I'm, like I said, I feel like I'm teaching the truth. I'm a big Orwell fan, and whenever I started learning about all this, I'm going to read you 2 quotes before I leave. One of them is Orwell. The most effective way to destroy a people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. And that really stood out to me. You know, come on. This is compulsory public school. They're forced to go through. And we don't teach these principles. We don't teach the basic foundation from kindergarten up and build on it. I mean, can you imagine what kind of citizen would graduate from our high schools if they had this knowledge all the way through? You know, and I have to teach NAFTA. I have to talk about NAFTA. I have to talk about these global economy and all this, you know, but I feel like I'm trying to counteract a brainwashing program. I don't know any other way to say it, but I feel like what I'm doing is important, and I'm lucky to be in the small rural area where I'm at. It's largely conservative. We do have liberals, and I don't have anything against liberals. It's all about principles. It's not really conservative liberal, it's principles. If you know the principles that the country was founded on, then you know how to discern all these things being thrown at you by our elected officials. And the last quote I'll leave you with really speaks to me also. This is Stalin. Education is a weapon whose effects depend on who holds it in his hands and at whom it is aimed. And it's aimed at us. And it's been aimed at us for a long time. And they hold the policy-making decisions, the curriculum decisions. But we can make a change. You know, if we know it, if we know the principles, we can make a change individually, one by one. So I'm hoping this kind of spreads out, you know.
Well, Tiana, I don't know if you remember that. You sent that out on some kind of email.
I did.
And I responded right away and said I was going to print it out and read it with my son.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
My son is 12, and when we read it, he so dug it, he marched around for 2 days. And it was like, he was like Mr. Libertarian. When I work for Dad, I better not get taxed.
You know what, that's what I mean,
it was like, no, that's room and board. There's a difference. But it was brilliant, and we live, he goes to Navarro.
Okay, I student taught at Navarro, that's where I
very conservative.
Yes,
at Christmas, there's a nativity.
Yeah.
A scene when you walk in.
It's nice to be in those small school districts.
It's wonderful.
But you know, that's what I have to say with the kindergarten students. They were into this. I mean, even the ones that are usually daydreaming, they were participating 100%.
He was like,
and then after we got done with all of this, it was like green eggs and ham. You know, I'm green eggs and ham after that.
In our school, when you walk into the foyer, there is for a time when the kindergarten students and first grade students are studying the Declaration of Independence, we display it in the foyer of the school for about 3 months out of the year.
That's
we just, you know,
it's a private.
But I think it's good, like, when I started out with John Locke, because that put the basis to where did Thomas Jefferson, where did they get these ideas?
Right, yeah.
Well, they got it from him.
Right.
And, you know, it just kind of, it really made the connections and built it up, and then we just integrated it all year into everything we did. Little Red Hen story, Jack and the Beanstalk story. I mean, even when the kids would break rules in the classroom, it was like, does that follow the principles of property? And they would just, I mean, any other time you say, now we don't steal, or do we hit, do we steal? Right. You know, but when you said it like that, it was, oh, that doesn't, it was
that
really
story, I remember something about, and part of it was pink, and part of it was green, and part of it was purple.
And so, you know, I'm thinking, okay, let's see what I can do with my 6th graders. I'm kind of sad to leave my kindergartners because I wanted to repeat and do this, but the teacher that's replacing me in kindergarten, the last 2 weeks of school, she worked with me, I showed her everything.